Episode 5 Hand of the Fair Maid. The London and North Eastern Railway was one of the so-called Big Four companies, formed during the 1923 Grouping Act in Britain. In this form, with engines from the North Eastern region and Great Northern Railways, it lasted a mere 25 years, but left an everlasting impression of luxury, prestige and speed. 40 years after the end of British mainline steam, these are the stories they tell. The London and North Eastern Railway had a great policy of naming their top-end expresses, and no other railway could lay claim to being the fastest railway in the world. The LNER knew the power of marketing, and gave the special expresses wonderful names like the Elizabethan, the Coronation, and, of course, the famous Flying Scotsman. When the LNER simply became the Eastern region of British Railways, more named trains appeared, for the same reason, the ideals of luxury and prestige appealing to their passengers. It was on that late summer's day that Sir Ralph was telling a spellbound young Herbert all about the famous Flying Scotsman train. "Yes, indeed, a fine run. King's Cross, home of the greats," he said grandly. "My cousins, the A3s, you know, started it off. First built as Gresley A1s, they were rebuilt gradually over the next decade in service, and became the fastest engines in the land. One in particular, the engine named after the train, was the fastest engine in the world for a while." Stephen chuckled. "I'm sure if Hawke were here today he'd tell you otherwise, Sir Ralph," he said. "Have you ever heard of City of Truro?" "Of course I have, my dear Stephen," Sir Ralph said soothingly. "I have no doubt in my mind that had it been authenticated, he would have held the record first." This coming from Sir Ralph surprised Alan immensely. "What? No Great Western bashing?" he asked, astounded. Sir Ralph beamed at him. "My dear Alan, City of Truro is a special case. Wonderful engine, not unlike Stephen here. A true and proper engine. Just because," he added, feigning hurt feelings, "he's not the right railway doesn't make him a decent engine." Alan was stunned. Nigel, however, was watching Sir Ralph warily. "What's your game, then?" he asked Sir Ralph. "Why is he a special case?" "Because," Sir Ralph said stiffly, "I've met him and spoken to him. A nicer engine you could not meet, despite my preferences," he said loftily. Alan and Nigel exchanged glances. "Besides," Sir Ralph went on, "I wouldn't expect any of you to understand. The speeds we reached, both him and I, and my classmates, are beyond all your capabilities." Alan seethed with indignation. "I could beat you in a race any day," he said. "You're just full of hot air." "Hot steam, my dear Alan," Sir Ralph smirked. "I'm a steam engine, not some trumped-up gas turbine engine." "He is a trumped-up engine, though," Nigel whispered to Alan. "And he is full of gas, old windbag." Alan and Nigel burst out laughing, while Sir Ralph watched indignantly. "Perhaps you would care to make a wager, Alan," Sir Ralph said. "We'll both pull the midday express this week, and whoever makes the fastest run wins the hand of the new express, the Fair Maid." All the other engines held their breath. The new named express was a prestigious event in itself. It was a great challenge, with a great prize. "Done and done," Alan laughed. "This'll be easy." "Splendid," Sir Ralph said. "Now excuse me, I have a stopping train to pull," and he puffed away grandly. Alan rolled his eyes, and smiling, looked back at the other engines. They all looked slightly worried. "Don't overdo it," warned Nigel. "Remember about our passengers," Herbert stuttered, and Stephen saved the best bit of advice until last. "I'd pull out of it if I were you." "You don't think I can do it, old friend?" Alan said. Stephen looked grave. "No, Alan," he said. "I'm afraid I know that you can't." Alan was taken aback. "Why do you say that?" he asked. Stephen sighed. "You were built with expresses in mind, that is for sure. But Sir Ralph and his brothers were built for speed, and speed alone. The streamlined shape and double chimney aren't for show. They serve a purpose, and that is why Sir Ralph shall win this race." "Humph," Alan said sourly. "Just you wait and see. I'll show that rotten cheese-shaped wedge what real speed is all about." And he puffed away to find his coaches. The two engines had agreed to be timing their runs pulling the midday express, as both Alan and Sir Ralph were not equipped with corridor tenders for the longer runs. Further, they would only reveal the times of their runs after both of them had pulled their respective trains. The other engines waited that long week for another argument to erupt, but it didn't happen. Alan was not speaking to any of them, and Sir Ralph was much busier than normal, with the late holiday goers forcing more timetabled trains. Sir Ralph had just been cleaned. His brasswork shone like gold, and his whistle gleamed in the August sunrise. "Marvellous," he said, proudly, puffing out of the yard and working his way across towards the main station. He backed down onto his coaches. Alan was waiting at the other platform. "Well, don't wait too long," Sir Ralph said sweetly. "I'll have this train to Newcastle and back in 2 shakes of a shunter's pole." Alan simply blew off steam, smiling. Sir Ralph snorted and puffed away. Sir Ralph had a good run. No signal seemed to be against him. He puffed quickly over the viaduct. The passengers got in and out quickly at the stations, and soon he could see the tall chimneys of the Newcastle factories on the skyline. He returned to the yard early the next morning, and found Alan waiting impatiently. "Morning, young Alan," Sir Ralph said. "Have a good run." "Just you wait," Alan muttered. "I'm going to wipe the rails with you." And with that, he puffed out of the yard and towards the big station. Stephen called out, "Good luck!" and grudgingly, Alan whistled back. Alan backed down onto the train. He watched the passengers boarding with angst. "Come along, quickly now," he said anxiously, his safety valves hissing noisily. Suddenly, it all seemed to happen at once. The guard blew his whistle, his driver opened his regulator, and Alan snorted out of the big station, gathering speed. The train was heavy, and as they crossed the viaduct, Alan refused to tire. I must beat him, he panted, and began to speed up, but his driver checked him. "Steady, boy," he said, closing the regulator. "We don't want to come off the rails." Alan was cross, and as they approached the junction, he saw that the signal was set to danger. "Oh no," he said crossly, and began to slow. But as they approached the signal, it lifted. "Away we go, Alan," his driver said, and Alan hastily accelerated away. Crossing the viaduct, Alan felt the wind at his wheels and was spurred on ever faster. It was nearly 2 o'clock when he could see the smog on the horizon, and presently the very same chimneys Sir Ralph had seen towered above him. Alan returned to the shed later that afternoon, and all of the engines were there, eagerly awaiting the results. He backed down next to Sir Ralph and let off steam. "Well, I have the results." The foreman was there, standing between the lines. Mr. Cecil, the timekeeper, was very pleased with the 2 runs. However, with a time of 1 hour, 45 minutes, the winner is Sir Ralph. All the engines, except Sir Ralph of course, gave a mighty groan. "This time is a particularly good run for an A4 Pacific, with an average speed of 82 miles an hour. The foreman continued. "However, Mr. Cecil expressed the opinion that Alan's run was more significant." The engines were perplexed. "Alan made the same run in 1 hour and 52 minutes, the foreman said, "which, while 7 minutes slower than Sir Ralph, is 5 minutes quicker than any other run by engines of his class and power." This seemed to be of little consolation to Alan. "I still lost," he said, downcast. "Yes, you did," Sir Ralph said loftily. "However, I concede that your run was the better of the 2. Alan was speechless. "I was built for speed," Sir Ralph went on, "and to come within 5 minutes of me is a great feat for any engine. So, I bow to you, Alan. It was a tremendous run." And the A4 puffed grandly away. Stephen pulled up alongside Alan. "You did very well," he said, smiling. "You were right, though," Alan said, smiling ruefully. I'm "Apology accepted, old friend," Stephen interrupted. "We have something rather more important to discuss now, however." "What's that?" "I wish I knew. What's got into Sir Ralph?" And all the engines agreed. Sir Ralph acting nice? What exactly had happened at the works while he'd been away? I'm afraid for you and I, that's another story. But for Alan and the Fair Maid Express, the story was just beginning.